I just wanted to say a quick word before we started the video. I thought that making a video that didn't address what was going on would be a nice break. Every story that's in my news feed is about some aspect of COVID-19. It's overwhelming and I didn't want to add to it, but as I was editing this video, it started to feel heartless or just ignorant to not acknowledge what was going on. Things are weird, right? But we're trying to do what we can, social distancing and washing our hands and all that. We're here to take care of each other, even if that care involves distance. And hopefully we'll get through this soon enough. You all are awesome, and I'm glad you're here. Thanks for watching Lunch Ride. Hey, my name's Cody and you're watching Lunch Ride. Today I'm going to upgrade the Ratchet in the DT Swiss hubs that I have on the Yeti. Now there are plenty of videos that will show you how to do this. It's a pretty straightforward process and they're way better than anything that I could do without copying them to the point of plagiarism. But I'm going to do it anyway. We're going to work on this right here, right now. I haven't done this before, so we're going to be doing this together. But we're going to talk about something that I think a lot of videos overlook, and that's real life. So you see, by trade, I'm a carpenter. So if you've ever watched a YouTube video or like This Old House about how to do certain kind of construction techniques, they make it look so easy. All you have to do is X, Y, and Z, and you'll get perfect results every time. But you know, as soon as you try it yourself, it all goes to shit. Now, why is that? Well, for one thing, with home improvement videos, to make things simple, they make sure that every room is true, level, square, and plumb, that every corner is a perfect right angle, and every wall is as flat as a geometric plane. But this kind of instruction exists only in a vacuum. It doesn't take into account real-world conditions. So what I'm getting at is, instead of showing you exactly how I'm going to replace the Star Ratchet, what I want to do is talk about techniques that make us better mechanics, or better craftsmen, or better tradespeople. Does that make sense? All right, so I could take the cassette off, but you can actually, with this, just pull the cassette straight off. And that's what we're after right there. Now, the first point that I would like to make, and you'll see where I'm going with this, is to think through your process before you begin. Spend a little time, or a lot of time, depending on the task, of going through the process, each step in your mind. Like with this, by thinking through it, I'll know that once I get this apart, I'm gonna have to degrease a bunch of stuff. So I should have some towels ready and somewhere to put all the little small parts that will come out of this. So before I even start, I'll anticipate the problem of it being dirty and I'll have something to clean it with. The bike's brand new. It has less than 150 miles on it now by this point. So it's still really clean. So I don't have to really get in there, just taking out some of this main body of grease. Now there's two springs in here and they sit up against the Star Ratchet like that, and they're conically tapered. You see that? My understanding is the wide end of the spring sits against the ratchet. I might have just spoken wrong. We'll see. The next thing that I want to talk about is not rushing the process. If you're doing something new on your bike, like replacing this Star Ratchet gear, I've never done this before, so I'm just kind of, I don't want to be in a hurry. I don't want to have somewhere that I need to be in 30 minutes, because then I'll only be thinking about that and not at the task at hand, and it might cause me to skip a step or just forget to do something altogether, and I wind up closing the patient with a scalpel inside. You know what I mean. So if there's something that you have to do, just make sure you have the time to do it. And if you don't have the time to do it, break it up into steps, saying I'm going to get this far now, and that will be a good stopping point and I can come back to it tomorrow. So there's one more spring in there, and just for, I could turn the wheel over and get it out just easily enough, but I'll just use this. So that leads me perfectly to my next point, is to be observant. My dad used to say to me all the time, and I'm sure your parents did too, and I've said it to my kid a million times, watch what you're doing. But what that really means is, Be present. Be observant. When taking on a project, don't just start taking nuts and bolts off just to get it apart. Pay attention to how it's going. Observe how the bolts came out. Was there anything of note, like was one harder to unthread than the others? Was there some that you thought would all be the same size or actually different sizes? Is there any sign of damage or anything else that you might not catch if you are thinking about other things? And if there is, write it down, or at least make a good mental note of it. So what I'm talking about right now, what I saw is that the wide end of the conical spring goes up against the ratchet. It's not true. I just observed that it's the small end that goes against the ratchet. Now, see, this is my challenge for this, is I'm trying to do this while talking to you. So this is really me doing a do as I say, not as I do. Well, just like this, if I'm just going through the motions and not being observant, I could do something that would cause a problem, either immediately or later down the road. So if you're new to mechanicking, working on your bike, you want to try some new stuff, maybe it's simple stuff like making your tires tubeless or anything like that. If it's something that you're not quite familiar with, look it up on YouTube. Find instructions. Maybe one of your friends already knows and can give you pointers. But at some point, you're going to have to sit down and do it yourself. Now, one thing that I find, if you run into a problem, you say something's not going together right, but you know all the pieces are there and you know it can be done because that's how it came apart. Don't rush it. Give yourself time to solve the problem. Maybe go have a cup of coffee, grab another beer, or just try to work on something else and come back to that. Okay, so let's see. I'm pouring out the pieces now. Here, I'm gonna scoot this aside. So here are the old ratchets. Not very old, but those, you can see what they're talking about. These are what they're calling the points. So those are 36-point Star Ratchets. And they work by getting together like this and slipping past each other, ka-chink, 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 and then engaging this way. So these are the 36. And these are the 54. Oh man, this is going to be cool. So there, and it also comes with some special grease. Nabben Werkzeuge. I think that's, special grease. My apologies to Miss Peaches. So that leads me to my last point of the day, and that is really to stay organized. Try to be as organized as possible. That includes your tools, taking things apart and putting them back together. A friend of mine taught me this little trick. When he's building a bike or working on a bike, he creates what he calls the Zone of Containment, I think is what he calls it. But basically like a rag or a sheet of newspaper, and anything that he takes off the bike, he sets on there, set them all on there. Anything that comes off the bike has to go into the containment zone and lay them out in the order that you took them off the bike. So when you go to put it back together, you know the order in reverse of how they'll go on, and you also know if you left something out. So the reason I bring all this stuff up, because I think about what had made me a better craftsman and a better mechanic, or just a better critical thinker overall. And it's these skills like this that, for example, I like to cook, and I would always get cookbooks and cook the recipes out of those cookbooks and do it, exactly how it is in the recipe book. But the best cookbook that I ever bought, I kind of bought on accident, and it turned out it was more of a technique book. A book on how to cook and not so much what to cook. And it blew my mind because at that point, I no longer needed to follow a recipe, cup of this, cup of that, 20 minutes in the oven, and you're done, but would understand the principles behind the recipe. So yeah, I didn't have to follow a recipe verbatim anymore. I could get the gist of the recipe and know what they were doing. You see the ingredients, you know how they go together. Okay, so all of this to say, if you're learning how to become a mechanic, if you're learning how to become a tradesman, go for the overarching ideas, the theories behind what you're doing. If you take some time and focus about theory and underlying forms of what you're doing, you'll become better craftsmen, better mechanics, better problem solvers. Now I'm putting it back together in the order that it came apart. we'll put some grease on the inside of here, on the teeth that the ratchet engaged with. Oh, that's gonna sound cool. All right. Well, my name's Cody, and you're watching Lunch Ride. If you liked the video, if you thought it was helpful, hit like, subscribe. If you have some suggestions along the same point, please leave them in the comments. Help us all out. I know there's a lot of people out there watching, and there's a lot of wisdom. So you guys with the wisdom, throw down some knowledge on us. Maybe tomorrow we won't be as dumb as today. Should that be the new channel catchphrase? Don't be as dumb as you were today.